India and Pakistan, two countries that have been left divided by long-standing religious conflict. Religion was the driving force between the partition of 1947, which ultimately led to the conflict between India and Pakistan. This conflict has led to the harnessing of nuclear weapons by both countries, which has left the world wary of the consequences if tensions were to overflow. The partition of 1947, each country's continuous fight for religious recognition, the eruption of conflict, and 9/11 have kept the once united nation, prior to 1947, from ending the conflict that continues to hinder the growth of both separate countries. The region was once considered one country, first discovered by Britain in 1857. Britain colonised it and called it colonial India. The colonisation of India was seen as a positive move for Britain. The move enhanced Britain's access to resources, resulting in an economic boom. The East India Company was created for trade. Not only was it a great spectacle for trade, but it also showed vast potential in the expansion and utilisation of natural resources such as coal and iron. Britain realised that this would not only benefit India, but it would also provide an economical profit for them. Dadabhai Naoroji said in 1887 of British rule in India, "To sum up the whole, the British rule has been morally a great blessing. Politically, peace and order on one hand, blunders on the other. Materially, impoverishment relieved as far as the railway and other loans go." The most significant strategy proposed by Britain was the introduction of unity. Unity in religion was vital to the survival and growth of India. Given religion was important to the daily life of Indians, Britain made sure that all religions were accepted and treated with equal importance in order to encourage cohesion amongst the people. Britain led India to become one of the world's strongest and largest democracies. However, by the beginning of the 1940s, it was evident that the Indians were not satisfied living under colonial control. The following was recorded by an Indian radio in June of 1947. 9 months have passed, months of trial and difficulty, of anxiety and sometimes even of heartbreak. Yet looking back at this period with its suffering and sorrow for our people, there is much on the credit side also, for India has advanced nationally and internationally and is respected today in the councils of the world. The Indian people eventually decided to take control of what was rightfully theirs as citizens. In August of 1947, India gained independence from Britain. In that same year, the country of India was divided into two separate nations, now known as India and Pakistan. As announced on the 3rd of June 1947, the grounds of division were that it would be made on the basis of citizenship, which in its turn would be based on geographical considerations, and an opportunity might be given to volunteers if they were now resident in that part of India in which their community was in a minority, to transfer their homes and citizenship to the other part. This division was known as the partition. It occurred as a result of the presence of two religious groups which failed to exist peacefully, and they were each seeking a separate state. Religion was the driving force behind the partition of 1947. The two dominant religions that existed in this region at the time were Hinduism and Islam. Each religion had significantly different beliefs. India was seen as a predominantly Hindu state, while Pakistan was predominantly Islamic. In 2002, it was found that India consisted of 81% Hindus, while Pakistan consisted of a mere 2%. The majority of Pakistan, 97%, being Islamic. Hindus believe in a spirit called Brahma. They believe that this spirit guides events of the cycle of life, including birth, death, and the reincarnation of an individual. They believe in classes, or their former name, castes. These link people in terms of status and occupation. Hinduism is the incorporation of an extraordinary diverse range of beliefs and practices which aim to deliver salvation, moksha, to its devotees. The alternate kind of Hindus are known as Sikhs. They comprise only 2% of the Indian population. Unlike their Hindu counterparts, they only believe in one god. They too believe in the cycle of life, but reject the Hindu beliefs regarding castes. They affirm that all people are of equal value. On the other hand, Muslims differ significantly in their beliefs. They worship one sacred God known as Allah, the Prophet Muhammad, and the most sacred text which contains his teaching, the Quran. The Quran teaches that all decisions and events that occur are based on faith in Allah and reason. The influence of religion in Hindu-dominated India and Islam-dominated Pakistan was at the core of the conflict that occurred. The Muslims insisted that they could not live in a country where they were the minority and Hinduism was the majority. This led to 3 wars over territory. Since the partition of 1947, there have been a number of conflicts that have left 360,000 people dead and 12 million homeless. The most noteworthy of the conflicts were the 3 wars fought between the years of 1947 and 1972. These 3 wars were territory wars regarding the Kashmir region, left undivided from the partition. The first war over Kashmir began in 1947 and did not end until 1949. The conflict created over Kashmir was due to its location. Kashmir was located between India and Pakistan, meaning that when the partition occurred, Kashmir would have to reside with either Pakistan or India.
From India come more harrowing pictures of communal strife. Prayers at the mosque one day, then curfew the next, with all normal life at a standstill and only the uneasy quiet of violent feelings bottled up, not dispelled.
At a parliamentary meeting in 1948, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto said that Kashmir was more a part of Pakistan than it could ever be with India.
Jammu and Kashmir is not an integral part of India. It has never been an integral part of India. Jammu and Kashmir is a disputed territory between India and Pakistan. It is more a part of Pakistan than it can ever be with India, with all her eloquence and with all her extravagance with words.
The Kashmir government could not decide, so Pakistan and India both began to campaign to Kashmir about who deserved the country the most. Ultimately, this led to conflict in the region, with roughly 1,500 soldiers dying from each country's army. In 1949, the UN called for a ceasefire, and Pakistan was granted 2/5 of Kashmir, while India claimed the 3/5. The Second War began in the year of 1965 on the border of West Pakistan and India. It began with the fighting of militants from both countries. However, it was not long before Indian and Pakistan troops were called in to assist. In 1966, a ceasefire was signed and the fighting stopped. The 1971 civil war in Pakistan led to 10,000 East Pakistan civilians fleeing their homes for peace in India. This sparked the third major war between the two countries. Pakistan attacked an Indian airfield in Kashmir, and India retaliated by attacking both East and West Pakistan and occupying the eastern side of Pakistan. Indira Gandhi, India's Prime Minister, said at the time that a nation's strength ultimately consists in what it can do on its own, and not in what it can borrow from others. From this statement, it is evident that India was determined to uphold strength as a nation in the eyes of Pakistan. India ultimately defeated Pakistan, and as a result, Pakistan lost 10,000 soldiers. By the end of 1971, yet another ceasefire was established, but the tension between the two countries still remained. Pakistan was the first of the two countries to introduce nuclear weapons. They were first tested in 1972. 2 years later, in 1974, India tested their first nuclear weapons. At this point in time, the Western world was very concerned with what could happen if India and Pakistan were to begin another war, but this time with the catastrophic potential which accompanies nuclear weapons. Pakistan's future Prime Minister, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was the Prime Minister for Fuel and essentially initiated the nuclear weapons program. This means that Pakistan leader was a leading advocate for nuclear violence. In 1973, he was elected Prime Minister of Pakistan. India wanted to introduce nuclear weapons to show Pakistan and the world that they were a country of power and would not be outranked by their neighbours. Raj Ramana, the former leader of the nuclear weapons program in 1970, said that there was never a discussion among us over whether we shouldn't make the bomb. How to do it was more important. For us, it was a matter of prestige that would justify our ancient past. The question of deterrence came much later. Also, as Indian scientists, we were keen to show our Western counterparts, who thought little of us those days, that we too could do it. The introduction of nuclear weapons was a concern for the Western world. The potential that nuclear weapons held had been demonstrated by the USSR throughout the Cold War. The long-standing conflict between Pakistan and India was one that was highly publicized. By 2002, the two countries had gone to war 3 times. The addition of nuclear weapons to the equation
super worry for the United States of America, and always has been. That's mission is, in case of trauma inside Pakistan, and we're not talking about the Pakistani Taliban taking over, that's not going to happen, but basically in case of a mutiny is the worry we have, realistic or not. They're there in case the Pakistanis want backup. They can say to us, we need help. And that was very important to us, because why?
Would only increase the tension that existed. The Western world believed that a nuclear war was likely to erupt, though both countries defended their actions and said that the nuclear weapons were secured and not assembled. In a 2001 report from the Pakistani Department of Defense, it was said that Islamabad's nuclear weapons are probably stored in component form. The threat of nuclear war was becoming a real possibility when Pakistan stated that they would defend themselves with nuclear weapons if provoked by their Indian rivals. In 2002, President Pervez Musharraf stated that if a war was to erupt, they would respond with full might. The events that unfolded on the 11th of September 2001 impacted greatly on India and Pakistan. The relationship between the US and Pakistan was strained due to a strengthened relationship between the US and India. Pakistan became aligned with the Taliban, placing further strain on their already weakened relations with the US.
One of our objectives is to smoke them out and get them running and bring them to justice.
The connection between these three regions was linked to al-Qaeda's involvement in September 11. The US demanded that the Taliban release bin Laden to US authorities. When they did not comply, America instigated a plan to invade Afghanistan. Geographically, Pakistan was the only country that not only bordered Afghanistan, but also the Indian Ocean. This would ease the transportation of troops to Afghanistan. However, Pakistan had close relations with America's enemy, the Taliban. Pakistan had close relations with the Taliban because after 9/11 took place, the Taliban looked to Pakistan for support. Key leaders of the Taliban fled to Pakistan to hide out in the wild border regions. This made convincing the Pakistani government to provide assistance to the US extremely difficult. Ultimately, though, the Bush administration believed that they had more to offer for Pakistan, as America was known as one of the world's power countries. They also used threats to keep Pakistan from siding with the enemy. A key threat that America launched was that they would add Pakistan to a State Department list of 7 terrorist-sponsoring nations, which would portend the possibility of US force. In other words, Pakistan was told by US officials to stop all contact with the Taliban or be treated like them. America also did not agree with Pakistan's involvement with nuclear weapons. The US believed that this would send a message to other countries that the US supported nuclear weapons, which would not be beneficial for the reputation of America. When Pakistan refused to comply with America's demands, the US established sanctions that would cut off military and economic aid to Pakistan. This significantly affected Pakistan as it was a developing nation struggling economically. In response, Pakistan chose to not end their nuclear weapons program, distancing them from the US, which intensified the tension with India, who were aligned with the US. The partition of 1947 was ultimately an event that triggered the conflict between India and Pakistan. There have been significant events that have re-triggered the conflict that began over half a century ago. There have been several occasions that the Pakistani Prime Minister and the Indian Prime Minister have met to resolve the issues of the past. This has occurred in 1999, 2000, 2004, and most recently in 2009. Unfortunately, the Indian Prime Minister remains inconsistent in wanting to establish cooperative relations with Pakistan. This was evident in July 2009 when they both agreed to fight the terrorism that is evident in both countries. But Singh changed his mind and ruled out all plans of formal peace talk. This had the potential to end the conflict in India-Pakistan. However, the continuation was ensured through the neglect of peace treaties. Religion was the main trigger to the conflict in India and Pakistan that left hundreds of thousands of people dead due to the struggle for peace and religious acceptance. The conflict continues to this day. Past issues that have been left unresolved continue to resurface in a modern context. It is clear that action must be taken to end the fighting and create long-awaited peace in the region.